Yo, what's up, YouTube? Long time no see. I know, my bad. It's been a while, but I have really good news for you guys. I applied for a bilingual job and they hired me. Can you guys believe that? That's insane. And to think that I started learning Spanish seriously in January 2023, and about 3.5 years later, I'm going to be using Spanish professionally. Like, insane. Now, I'm sure you guys are asking, Neon, what is the job? I'm going to be working as a standardized patient. Now, if you guys don't know what that is, I don't blame you. I didn't know what it was until I applied for the job. But basically, I'm going to be helping medical students practice interacting with patients, both in English and in Spanish. I'll be pretending to be a patient, they'll give me a script. They'll give me time to review it beforehand, and then I got to go in and follow that, kind of be like, oh, I'm a 40-year-old man with hypertension and diabetes, and things like that. I'm excited. I wasn't originally going to apply for the job, but I was like, all right, let's do it. I often doubt my Spanish ability. Like, I feel like I get too tongue-tied still, and I quite often have to pivot, like saying things, and like I start to say things in one way and then I quickly have to say it in a different way to keep that fluidity, because I get stuck saying it the other way. But I sent them my curriculum, or my resume. They gave me a call to do like a pre-screening, and the lady interviewing me was like, okay, this is it. We're going to speak in Spanish now. I'm going to give you a moment to prepare, because this is often where people realize whether or not they can actually do the job. And, I told her I was ready. I was ready to go. Like, let's do it. Obviously, I had nerves, so I don't think I spoke normally as well as I normally do. But, obviously I spoke well enough for them to invite me to the in-person interview, where I had to actually do the job, or in like a controlled environment where, like, with the interviewers and stuff like that, right? And I was the last person to get interviewed. I was quite nervous, because they told me that it would normally take about 5 to 10 minutes, and we finished in about 3. And I was kind of freaking out about it. I asked the lady that was guiding me to the exit. I was like, "Hey, like, what does this mean? Can you give me some insight here?" And she was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're good." Quite often they finish early anyway, so you're good. No, I wouldn't worry about it. And that helped kind of calm me down a little bit. And a week or two later, I got an email with a contract offering me the position. So my first day will be in September. I'm pretty excited for that. I'm finally going to have the opportunity to use Spanish in person, professionally at that. And hopefully I make some Spanish speaking friends through work, because I don't have anyone to speak Spanish with in person. Like, I basically have spent 99% of my entire Spanish journey using Spanish online, which kind of wild. But it's kind of hard to just like find those Spanish speaking circles in person unless you grew up in them. Or like you kind of like know where to look, or you like really go out of your way. I'm super excited. That'll be fun. Also, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update about what I've been doing to keep practicing my Spanish speaking. I had bought a class or a packet of tutoring sessions last year. I finished them all in December, and at that point I decided, okay, I'm going to keep practicing by joining Discord voice rooms, and I'm just going to stick with that. Spoiler, I did not stick with that. It's not something that I necessarily enjoy. Like, I enjoy speaking to people, but I really do prefer doing it in person if it's possible. On Discord, you're just sitting there talking. You're not even like, you don't even see the other person. And oftentimes you're talking to like brand new people, every single time in these like language learning discords, and that can get quite tiring quite fast. So when I got sick in June, I decided to take advantage of that. I started playing Hytale, which is a game that I've been looking forward to for like 10 years now. I think at this point, finally it came out this year. I saw that they had added a server list, like a server discovery list. And this game has proximity chat, which basically means like the players can talk when they're close to each other, when they're nearby. And so I decided to look for a Spanish speaking server. And I thought the same thing that normally happens to me in VR chat was going to happen to me in Hytale. Normally when I play VR chat, I just don't say anything. I just stand there in a corner or like stand there like staring at people with my avatar until somebody like starts talking to me. I think I just get nervous, you know, but fortunately someone started speaking to me right away. They were like, yo, like welcome to the server. What kind of player do you want to be? Are you looking to like join a faction? Are you looking to do everything on your own? Like, do you want more of a challenge? And obviously my goal was to speak to people. So I joined the faction, and that was a really, really good decision in hindsight, because that's how I met a ton of really good friends on there. I think there's about 10 of us in total that play basically every single day. And we're quite a large faction too. So there's really always someone to talk to in the game when you connect, at least when I connect. And this has been super, super fun, because it's the first time that I've made Spanish-speaking friends outside of this language learning context. You know, oftentimes when you make friends within the language learning community, there's the expectation that you do half the time in one language, half the time in another language. And, you know, that's always kind of like sitting there in the back of your mind, right? This is so much like, it's way different in the sense of like, we're just hanging out. We're just chatting. We're, you know, shooting the shit, for lack of a better term. And we're just doing it all in Spanish. You know, like 99% of the time, because there's actually one guy that's an English speaker that doesn't know any Spanish at all that happened to join our faction. So I translate for him, and I translate what he's saying for the rest of the players, which is quite funny, because oftentimes I'll go to say something in Spanish and I'll accidentally say it in English, or vice versa. But that has also been really fun as well, you know, acting as an interpreter. And, you know, in gaming, at least in this context, I had the opportunity, or I have a lot of opportunities to talk about the exact same topics repeatedly, which allows me to practice the same vocabulary and grammatical structures, which is a proven method for improving fluency. You know, you pick a topic, you speak about it for a minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, reiterating on it each time. And, you know, another really good thing is that you don't really have time to think when you're speaking among, or like with native speakers of a given language. They often speak quite fast between themselves. And, you know, if you want to keep pace, if you want to, you know, squeeze that joke in before the topic changes, you just have to spit it out. And, you know, if you say it wrong, you say it wrong. Or, you know, if you're lucky, you can correct yourself in the moment. So that's been good for just kind of like getting out of my head and just saying what I want to say. It is hard tracking the time that I spend practicing in Hytale. I have about 32 hours recorded in my language tracker, but I have a lot more time than that registered in the game. So there's obviously time I'm missing, but, you know, we could be talking for like 30 minutes straight, and then do like 2 hours of dungeons where we're not really talking the whole time, because everyone knows kind of what they're supposed to do, right? So I give it my best estimate. So, you know, take those Hytale hours with a grain of salt. But yeah, like another really interesting thing about all of this as well is that basically everyone that I spoke to didn't believe I wasn't a native speaker of Spanish. Like I would tell them like pretty soon after meeting them, like, hey, like, you know, sorry if I keep messing up, or if I pause like quite frequently. I'm learning Spanish. I'm not a native speaker. And people, they made me speak English as like a form of like two-factor authentication, like to prove that I'm actually an English speaker. And one guy, I guess I didn't even tell I was not a native Spanish speaker. And he didn't realize until one day I asked him like, hey, what does this word mean? Because I got lazy. I didn't feel like looking it up. And as soon as I asked him that, he looked at me and he was like, where are you from, Neon? And so I was like, oh man, he got me. And apparently the word that I didn't know was a word that, like, if you don't know that word, there's no way you could possibly be a native speaker of the language. So, yeah, he caught me. But yeah, that was like a really big boost for my confidence in Spanish because, oftentimes I get in my head thinking like, okay, because I trip up so much, because I stumble, do they think like I'm just a native speaker that's really awkward sometimes? Because, when you speak well, you have good pronunciation, a good accent. Oftentimes that can kind of mask any errors for native speakers. And like, you can kind of like slide by a little bit easier. But yeah, they really hyped me up when I was applying for that job. They were like, "No, man, you got it. Your Spanish is great." So that was really eye opening. As far as like reading goes, I think I finally established a good reading habit. It's something that I've been struggling to do basically since I started reading in Spanish. I used to read a ton as a kid, and then I stopped. And I started reading about a year or two ago because it was something that I knew was really good for my Spanish. And Spanish means a lot to me, so I wanted to do whatever I could to improve it. Obviously, I didn't stick with it. Like, I wasn't super consistent with reading. But lately, I found a good rhythm. On the weekends, I love going to like cafes, getting a coffee, sitting reading my book for an hour, hour and a half. And, doing that, I've just finished the second book in the Las Memorias de Idun saga. It's a fantasy saga by Laura Gallego, who's a Spanish fantasy author. And I actually just read the first chapter of the third book today. I don't know what I'm going to read next. I have a list of things that I want to get around to reading eventually. So, if you have any recommendations, let me know. I'm open to reading basically anything. I'm a really big fan of fantasy. It doesn't matter if it's translated or if it's a Spanish original work. Even if it's not fantasy, even if it's more like magical realism or something like that, I'm open to it. But yeah, finishing that second book in that series got me to 1,100,000 words read. So I'm a little over a third of the way to my 3 million word goal. I stopped tracking or like trying to like hit that habit every day or like worrying about, okay, I need to read X amount of pages so I can get to 1 million words by the end of the year. I'm just kind of doing my thing. I like reading about a chapter a day, which, has been about 40 pages, at least in the books that I'm currently reading. But I feel like doing that has kind of like eased some of that pressure. I'm reading more to read rather than reading to hit a goal. Which is very nice, very rewarding. I will say though that like lately I have not been consuming like any other content in Spanish. I think I've just gotten a little bit lazy with it. I'm not gonna lie. No YouTube videos, no podcasts. Basically all of my input has been through conversing with people lately on Hytale and reading books, which I feel like is good. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but I definitely need to make more of an effort to like watch a YouTube video or listen to a podcast for at least a few minutes instead of like something in English. So, but yeah, that's it for this update, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I definitely plan on uploading more progress updates about my Spanish. I've got a few other video ideas that I'm going to do soon, as long as I don't procrastinate too much. Yeah, so if you guys enjoyed, leave a like on this video, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.